Well, we are meeting here today to have a rather robust conversation about the experience and the takeaways from the DFK International Conference, which happened in Sydney in late July. And for this conversation, we have three fabulous guests in front of me. We have Gary Nugent, who is the managing partner of DFK Nugent's in Melbourne and also the chairman of DFK Australia and New Zealand. Welcome, Gary.
Thanks, Angela.
We have Cheree Woolcock, who is the CEO and director of DFK Benjamin King Money in Melbourne. She's also an executive board member for DFK International and the vice president of Asia Pacific. Thank you, Cheree, for your time. And lastly, but obviously by no means least, we have Stephen Bushell, who is the managing partner of DFK Gooding Partners over in Perth and the first ever president of DFK International from Australia. So we've got some great representation here to have a conversation about what we experienced at the conference. So thank you, Stephen, for your time as well.
Pleasure.
So I guess a great place to start is to get an understanding of why do delegates come from all over the world? In this case, we had 22 countries from Iceland to Auckland and 150 delegates attended from DFK firms all over the world. Why do they come so far to attend these sort of conferences? I mean, conferences are always fun to go to, but it takes a lot, time, energy, effort, money, the whole thing, to actually go along and get involved. Why is it so important and why is it so attractive for delegates to come to these sort of conferences when you're a member of the DFK family? I think I'll direct that one to start with that, Stephen, if I may.
Thank you, Angela. I guess the most important thing for us is to set a really strong agenda and make the conference as attractive as possible when it's first launched. So we launched these conferences 3 or 4 months before in terms of the registration, and the first thing people look at is the quality of the speakers and the quality of the program, and then they start to assess what the value add is for them. So is it worth travelling halfway around the world to attend this? This year particularly, we had 3 outstanding speakers, and I won't name them now, but the speakers and the agenda was world class. But I think the most important thing for a lot of delegates is not only do they somewhat expect those speakers, but there's all the other little bits of benefits that they take away, and that value add is the chit chat that happens at breakfasts, at breakout sessions, at lunchtimes, around the bar later on in the evenings during social events, and all the little anecdotes that happen throughout the conference. And that's what you're really doing, is building that rapport and building that trust with your other fellow members and colleagues from delegates from around the world. And I guess if I look back personally on the many conferences I've attended, I can think of one little story out of each of them that has just made that particular conference stand out. And sometimes it's not the guest speaker. Sometimes it's just something that's happened throughout the conference, and it might be just sitting down at a dinner or a casual conversation with someone that's led to an opportunity or building a bit more trust and I guess rapport with other members. So for me, the guest speakers are important, somewhat expected, but I think it's all the other bits that go to making a fantastic conference. Location, the hotel, the social events, of course the content. So
it's that opportunity, as you're saying, the opportunity for building those relationships, which go a long way. Getting out face to face as opposed to screen makes an enormous difference. What did you find, Cheree, in terms of those moments that when you're not actually seated listening to a speaker, etc., with the conferences you've been to, and this one in particular? What's a standout for you in terms of that relationship building aspect that you get when you are a part of an association like ours?
Well, like anything, Angela, I mean, these relationships are built over a long period of time and across a large geographical footprint. So I think the more you participate in these events, the stronger these relationships become. And you certainly look forward to it, both on a professional but also on a personal level as well. We're honoured to be part of DFK, and we're absolutely delighted with the bonuses of the professional friendships that you make along the journey, and certainly at coffee and lunchtime, and the lovely events that we participate in outside of the business content and dinners and things like that. It's a great opportunity to reconnect with with old friends and certainly to make lots of new friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And networks can never be too rich or too deep. And Gary, there was obviously people from all over the world, but as the chairman of DFK Australia and New Zealand, there was likely a larger contingent there of the locals. What was the benefit to, in your experience, in your vision, of being a member here in Australia and having the opportunity to connect with those international counterparts?
Look, the point to DFK is that we can each represent ourselves as partners of a group with, several $1 billion worth of turnover, represented in 90 countries, hundreds of firms. And if you're going to to make that statement in promoting your services to our client base, you've really got to be able to connect with the people that make up that group. Where a lot of the larger groups have a directory of members, we have, relationships where we've, as Stephen and Cheree have pointed out, where we've actually spent time with them. We've met their families often. We've had a chance to sit down and have a coffee or maybe a beer later in the evening. But it is important, if you're going to build those relationships, it's not just something that is, it's not about the technical, it's about the trust. And being in a situation where you can do that face to face is almost invaluable. And as a defense strategy for our firms that are looking into the mid-market, you have to be where those larger firms and larger opportunities lie. So for the ANZ firms that attended, I think they would have been delighted with the connections they would have made.
I think that word that you use, trust, especially at this point in time where we are worldwide, trust is such a important commodity that we really need to build upon. And I think as I was looking through the agenda and looking at some of the notes, those opportunities for the cross-border referrals and the cross-border brains trust, for want of a better description. As DFK Australia and New Zealand say that we have local knowledge, i.e. the firm, national connections, our association, and global reach. So it's really that opportunity to have seen that very much in practice when we were at the event. Well, it looks like we had, high profile speakers, and we're going to grab a few of those takeaways to share because they have value. Really engaging panels where there was different voices all approaching the same topic, but from those different perspectives to broaden our understanding, and those technical breakout sessions as well. So there was a really good flavour going across there. So let's talk for a moment. One of the speakers that looked like was a real standout was Jonathan Payne. We're looking that the sort of topic that we were looking at here was an axis of autocracy and a new geopolitical and economic reality. Boom, big topic. What really were mic drop moments there that affect us as firms, as business owners, and in turn that we can pass on to our clients as well? Cheree, can I jump to you first and then we'll move from there?
I've not heard Jonathan speak before. I know that Stephen and probably Gary had. But when you're in an auditorium with a lot of people, it was the last morning. It can tend to be a morning where people are stragglers and not necessarily attentive. My gosh, we were 150 odd people in a room where you could hear a pin drop.
Wow.
The depth of knowledge, the broadness of conversation, any question that was thrown to him about nearly any political moment anywhere in the globe, could he provide a response that was just enormously informative and opinionated, but very based on decades and decades of knowledge. A lot around what might occur in the US presidential election, of which some has already come to fruition. But I think you can really tell how much people enjoy a speaker when we've got time for one or two questions, and there's about 20 asked, and then they'll stay at the tea break, and then the tea break's over and 20 people are still waiting to ask more questions. So I don't know if I've ever witnessed anything that powerful at a DFK conference before. And it's pretty cool that it was on, in our home country. But the guys can probably give you a little bit more specific indications around things that he spoke about. But it was it was beyond powerful and
Yeah.
so well received by every single part of it, all 22 countries that were represented there.
It's so good to have access to that quality
Oh,
of speaker that has such an impression.
unbelievable. Well,
Yeah.
talk about being proud of having speakers from our own region. That was, that was just next level.
That was phenomenal. And that, I mean, that really does speak to one of the huge benefits of being a member of an association like this, who you have access to, who is in the room with you. And so that's a huge one. So let's grab a couple of those insights. Can I grab one from you, Gary, and then come across to Stephen? What was a real moment?
Look, I think the fact
Jonathan.
that he spoke so authoritatively in relation to the issues that he addressed, I think the issues of reinforcing what one of our panel members, Raghu, had mentioned about the powerhouse that is India. He supported that. I think we have a number of delegates within the Asia Pacific region that are looking at export markets and looking at where we ought to be able to trend our interest. And I think the fact that he could speak so authoritatively, not just about India as a investment horizon, but also specific entities within that group, and then he would talk about the upside of the next 10 to 15 years as to where that might from an Australian engagement point of view land us. And I think that's particularly helpful because it informs then a conversation with a client who says, look, I'm looking at expanding. Where do you think I should best spend my money? Well, you can have an authoritative conversation about that with that sort of backdrop. So I found that particularly useful.
Yeah, and it gives that, when you have access to these sort of insights, it gives that extra confidence to the way in which we can engage with clients as well, because we've had exposure to those opportunities where we can then go and dig a little deeper ourselves. So that's a great perspective to have on it. And Stephen, am I right in thinking we've got a few firms over in India?
Yes, we do. We have 4 firms in India. And as Gary said, it's definitely a rising market and something that we really need to be paying very close attention to. I think I've been fortunate enough to hear Jonathan speak on a number of occasions, and to Cheree's point, every single time there's hands that go straight up in the air, and he could probably talk for 2 or 3 hours and still not bore us to tears. His depth and breadth of knowledge is just second to none. He pronounces the global names with the proper accents. He studies this every day. I can just see a pile of newspapers on his desk looking at what happened last night. So he certainly stays in tune. But I think, as Gary said, the points he made about India, and I'd add to that Vietnam, Indonesia, and Nvidia was the other country, because he said, if you're going to invest in any country, Nvidia is the next one to be investing in terms of technology. He made it very, very clear that these rising economies and these rising populations are going to be the dominant forces in the future. And I think the European markets, the Chinese market, the American markets really need to be paying attention. And that was one of the big takeaways that I wrote down, and in fact spoken to a couple of our clients that are in that global space around these type of markets. So as we talked about, the overarching benefit of these conferences is to bring this sort of information back to your clients. It's all good to sit around and have a beer and talk about it and how amazing he was, but if we do something with this information and bring that value add back to our clients, then it not only enhances our experience as a member of DFK, but it helps our clients enhance their experience about being clients of members of DFK. So there's a huge knock-on effect with these conferences, and I think we all should take it upon ourselves as delegates to come back and brief our staff and brief our clients on what we've learned. Otherwise, it's a nice perk to have, but it has to have some benefits to it. So.
Absolutely, it's taking a perk and turning it into a purpose, which is going to have that domino effect, that knock-on effect, as you're saying. And you were talking about those rising economies and places to invest in, and touched on the tech that is changing things, which brings me probably to the second speaker that was there as well, Gihan Pereira, talking about, as a futurist, talking about what is coming towards us. So what did you what stood out there that is transferable information that, again, we'll do some briefing of our clients. But Gary, what did you hear from Gihan that you think, again, made it extremely worthwhile to be in the room and that perhaps could be shared?
Look, the thing with Gihan is he's got a very measured message, and it's very, if you like, digestible in terms of future trends. And it is his message, you know what I mean? And he identifies it with humour and with a lot of engagement with the audience. And now that you asked me the question is specifically, I think probably the thing I came away with is optimism. I tend to be a fairly optimistic person anyhow, but you know, the fact that you know, often with the trend analysis of a futurist is it's all doom and gloom, and whereas I certainly got from Gihan's presentation a sense that, you know, if you're informed and you're engaged, then you're better able to cope with what the future holds. And yeah, I think that those in the audience that would have come out of it with a sense that we're in a pretty good place. And that to me was a message that resonates.
Yeah, well, being wired optimistically, I'd have to agree with you there. And that
he also had a very interesting story. I think it was his Sri Lankan by background, and I think it was his nephew. He'd done a trip home recently. It was a nephew or a cousin who was one of two young Sri Lankans, very savvy in IT, and they'd developed some IT product that had gone global. And I think the message there is, you know, have a go. It doesn't really matter where you're from and what your background is, but if you're onto something, you know, back yourself and obviously, you know, push through with it. And this story was an extraordinary story coming out of also obviously in the Asia Pacific region, but coming out of Sri Lanka and his own family. You know, you might think, and when we're dealing with clients a lot of the time, you might think, wow, is it really achievable? But you'll never know if you don't actually try to, you know, push it through to realism. So he's, you know, obviously an exceptional storyteller and taught us how to do a couple of magic tricks as well. I wish I had listed down, because when he explained the way that they do it, it's very, very logical. But at that time, you know, when you're I think it was, you had to have the jack of spades or something. The way that they do these magic tricks is very, very clever.
So I love the way we're mixing in here these experiences at the conferences, the pleasure, the surprise, the entertainment, right alongside the learning. Yeah, right alongside the learning.
Absolutely.
And what I was hearing there from both of you is this. What I'm taking from this is, we go to the conferences, we get exposed to ideas, people, and concepts that don't come into the everyday. And then we can take that being informed and engaged back to our clients. So Stephen, you might be, I know, over with Gooding Partners, that you've done a lot of work in the startup space and in the innovation space, and being able to pull these examples that you have been exposed to as a member of DFK ANZ and then, you know, globally, to be able to show clients and to see how we fit into the bigger picture. Is that something that you feel strongly about? And did Gihan, as one example, help in that sort of area?
Absolutely, Angela. I think that my big takeaway from Gihan is he broke down sort of where we are at the moment in terms of AI, driverless cars, drones, medical advancements, better use of the network and technology we've got. And his big message out of that is, all of those are great advancements, but what you're going to see in the future is they're all going to start to talk to each other. And he gave a great example where you've got somebody that is unwell, you've got a driverless car that comes to your house, picks them up. It's already talking to the AI and the hospital and the doctors. You've got the driverless car on its way to the hospital. It's already taking your pulse. It's working out what's wrong with you. And if it's a heart attack and you need a stent, it's printing the stent in a 3D printer. The drone picks up that stent and delivers it to the car. And if need be, the operation can happen on the way to the hospital. Now, I think we were all pretty blown away by that. But when you break down that example into bits and pieces, all that technology actually already exists. But his big message to us, and my takeaway, and I already had a chat to a couple of clients, is that the connection of all those technologies is where the future power is. And as I said, that all of those examples I've just given are all in our everyday life already. But his vision around being a very well-trained futurist is his keen eye is to say, well, all of those technologies are going to produce the example I've just given, and we're all like, absolutely. We're actually not that far away from combining all those technologies to see out that example he gave. So,
and those new opportunities that a nimble business owner or a nimble entrepreneur can spot and take advantage of right now.
Yeah.
Which probably leads in nicely to when the other speaker that we had there who was talking about where are the new business opportunities, Keith Sutter, I think it was, and was talking through, this is a little bit of blue ocean thinking that is going on here, which I think is one of the topics that he was covering. So what did we take from Dr. Sutter in terms of that made us feel more informed, and that in turn gives us that advantage when we are taking care of our own clients as well? What stood out to bring into our client conversations?
The issue with blue ocean thinking was I thought was particularly good, and I think it actually came up in a conversation with a client subsequently, because they're struggling with that, looking to create a competitive advantage, and the issue is where you're only focusing on the competitors, then it takes away from what might be a stronger strategy, is to focus not on the competition, but on the strength of what it is that you bring to the table and the uniqueness of that. So I think the idea of thinking differently was particularly good, especially where we're looking at a very innovative series of markets and opportunities. I think that old think that we often get with local seminars that we might attend, what we do get at DFK, and especially an international conference, is the ability to find much broader thinking. That was valuable.
I'd probably extend that blue ocean thinking around being more proactive than reactive. I think he made the point around if you're only going to keep up with your competitors, you're never going to grow and outperform them. So you need to take that blue ocean leap to get in front of your competitors, because if you're just simply waiting for them to come out with their new product and you replicate it, you're never going to pass them. So I think to support what Gary's saying, you've really got to go to your clients and say, be brave. And we use that term a lot in our world. And be brave and really challenge the thinking of your in-house designers or whatever you have to be particularly focusing on, and try and leapfrog over your competitors and get that advantage. Otherwise, you're just simply going to be always running second, third, fourth. So,
And if our clients have the foundations that are well in place and well supported by us, so that they know that things are ticking along well, then you have that surety to be able to be innovative. It's difficult to try the new things, to be courageous when you're worried about, is the cash flow going to hold us in place? So I love how we do both sides of the equation.
And I think Dr. Keith Suter, he probably rounded off the other two presenters really well. I think he presented in the middle of the three, but if he was at the end, he probably would have sort of summarised the other two. So apart from that blue ocean thinking, I think he probably say it's a little bit repetitive, but I think he rounded out some of those other conversations. So I think overall, all three scored very highly as a collective. One might have been a bit better than the other one, but overall, I think the feedback we've had so far, we're only a week out from the conference, but the feedback we've had so far is the three speakers were world-class and outstanding. So.
Fantastic. Well, just to touch on a couple of other things before we close off. Cheree, there was quite a few panels that we brought in there as past the speakers. So instead of just absorbing, we're actually having a conversation with the different perspectives. What are the bonuses and some of the ideas that perhaps were fresh from the panels? Why are panels so valuable to us at these sort of events?
Well, we had a few different, first of all, we had panels based on geography. So DFK's got three geographical locations in the world, being the Americas, Europe, Middle East and Africa, incorporating the UK and Ireland and Asia Pacific. So Gary and I were able to have three panelists and from India, Australia and from Nepal. And it's great in that each individual can raise their profile within the group themselves, but it also lets them talk a little bit about their firm and, more importantly, about their region and about them personally. And so over the course of the conference, we heard from 9 people from all around the world, and you certainly get a little bit of understanding of how they operate in their world and them as people. Usually something very interesting, hobbies. People are very interesting in what they do outside of work, whether they're classically trained in dance or music or very sporting. I find that very interesting. That's the real people side of it. The other panels we had were around the committees that we run. So we run many international committees, income tax, valuations, the audit and assurance, the International Women in Leadership, and there's a few others. And so we had the chairs of those panels being interviewed, talking about the benefits of participating in those committees. And they're global committees, and they're certainly invaluable and very prestigious to be part of too. I know in the ANZ region that there's quite a few people who are very keen to achieve a position in these very prestigious committees. So technical information as well as more about individuals, which is really the DFK family, isn't it? It's about the doing business, knowing what you're doing on a global scale and knowing the people that you're doing it with. So I personally think they're very informative and quite invaluable.
And they take us out of our siloed thinking. I mean, we can, we're not just exposed to the Australian way. That there is all of these other richness of experiences that we get to bask in and take home, take away some of those insights.
Things that you'll remember about people or places, for the rest of your career.
And Stephen, one of the things that I've heard you mention is that how well Australia, DFKANZ, as an entity and as the individual firms is regarded in the bigger picture by our international compatriots. Can you speak just to that for a moment?
Oh, for sure. I think for the last 10, 12 years, Australia's certainly been seen as an innovator of various projects, very successful projects. Obviously, we launched our marketing campaign led by yours truly there, Angela, probably 13 years ago now. And marketing of a DFK association or group member was unheard of back then. And, we're now seeing a lot of the national groups marketing themselves not only to their clients, but also to DFK International and the broader DFK community. So definitely the spotlight's always been on Australia, and other group members have been watching what we do. Very proud of some of the innovation that we've got up and running. The leadership program, which started back in 2009, has grown significantly, and the current board has recently introduced the PDP program, which starts from undergraduate all the way through now to effectively partner. So we've completed that full circle of life in terms of DFK and your journey, and I think everybody within ANZ is using that as a very strong marketing piece to attract good talent, strong talent right across all levels of employment within the group. So there's been 3 or 4 very key initiatives that have been adopted by other national groups within DFK, and I think we certainly punch above our weight, as they say, and we're certainly looked upon as being the innovator down here in Australia and New Zealand.
That's a great spot to be, and it's another really good reason to become a part of the association. And I guess bringing it round to just tying all the ends up in a little bow here, Gary, the idea of synergy with you being the national chairman now, and the synergies that happen between our firms, which is then amplified when you're in that global experience. How do you see that as your firm came into the DFK family? I wouldn't say a short time ago, but I didn't meet you right at first, but so you've brought your firm in. And so what do you see and what have you experienced that is very encouraging for other firms, perhaps who are individualistic at the moment, to come in and have this sort of synergistic experience? What message shall we leave there?
Well, I think what we can do is represent ourselves bigger than individually that we are. So I think we are often defending ourselves against the second tier firms that like to promote the fact that, look, the firm you're dealing with are very good technically, but maybe you've outgrown them. Well, that's never going to be part of the conversation now, because they can't outgrow us. We're so significant collectively, but we get to keep all the specialness of being the firms that we are. We have our own culture, we have our own systems and process, and we enjoy the autonomy of being, independent. Yet the synergy of being, we don't do audit, for instance, but yet we're able to offer audit because of the connections with the other firms. I couldn't think of one issue that comes up that we haven't got a solution with somebody that I know and trust. And I also know that when my client rings that person, that they're going to be looked after. So from my point of view, if I were to refer them outside of DFK, I don't necessarily have that same trust. I sort of fear what either A, are they going to get good advice, or B, are they going to be looked after with the way we like to look after our clients. So the synergy is that, like, really we get to enjoy the best of both worlds, the scale and the boutique nature of what we do. So it's a very compelling proposition. I certainly encourage other firms to join into it. We've benefited enormously. Our team love it, and they love the fact that they can be involved with other firms in a very collegiate fashion, without us fearful of what that might be in terms of their perhaps looking to jump ship. They're, as I said, we are bigger than what we are by virtue of the DFK Association.
Yes, we cast a long shadow in a good way.
Indeed.
As individuals. Well, wonderful. I think that's a great place for us to draw this particular conversation to a close. And there'll be other opportunities for us to share some of the insights and the experiences that are unique when you become a part of an association like ours. Is there, I'll check in briefly, is there any last points that you'd like to add to this recording, Stephen or Cheree, on top of what Gary has just ended with there?
Just with the conference being held in our country, obviously enormous pride. Australians are very patriotic, as you know, but the people who chose to come to visit us in Melbourne, that we had quite a few international visitors. We also had the opportunity for them to come into our office and for our team to meet leaders from around the world, global leaders. That's certainly that really crystallises it for the team that, the DFK involvement it's real, it's really important. These people are leaders globally, and they've taken the time to come to Melbourne as part of, visiting Australia for the conference in Sydney, but come to Melbourne and make the time to come to visit us and our teams. And, that's the extension of the DFK family. It's, wanting to be ingrained in what all the firms in the regions are doing, and giving their own time to come and do a little speech over a morning tea with some Tim Tams and Lamingtons, which are very Australian. It's that personal touch as well. It's very important, I think.
And I guess one of the things that also does is in a period when a lot of people are talking about the importance of engagement and retaining staff, a great example of how you can, as an employee, be realizing you're a part of something a lot larger, and there is more opportunities when you're a part of that very extended family than perhaps you could be as smaller. So it goes to attracting and retaining good staff as well.
Absolutely. And Stephen touched on the People Development Program, which is our new grad and undergrad program. And so we had about 40 in the office that day. Some were working from home, and we asked for a show of hands who has been part of a DFK conference, and probably 70% put their hands up, because we have a lot of young people in the program. So it is, the reach is significant, the impact on every person in our team, as well as the benefits that our clients get from the knowledge that we get from being part of DFK. I don't know how you quantify it.
Yeah, bringing that back to the coalface. No, those are great points. Thank you. So, Stephen, you're duty bound now, as the last comments.
I'd just like to say, I guess on behalf of DFK International and Cheree and I sitting on the international board, it was an absolute privilege to host the conference here in Sydney. It
Mm.
hasn't been here for nearly 20 years in Australia, and
Wow.
the planning of these conferences starts pretty much the day after the last conference, which
Yeah.
last year was in Miami. And to be able to showcase Australia, showcase Sydney, and give the international people that made the effort to come to Australia such a great experience, from cuddling a koala bear or koala, can't call them koala bears, koala, to Sydney Harbour cruises and witnessing the bridge and climbing the bridge. It was all of those little extra bits, as I said at the beginning, really gives everybody those memories that they can take back. And it'll not only be remembered for some great speakers, but all those little extra bits of their experience down under. And some of them have only just left today to go home, so some of them have spent 2, 3, 4 weeks in Australia. And
Wow.
so the chance to showcase Australia like we have and put on such a great show is a credit to not only the DFK International staff, but everybody in ANZ that contributed. So yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you.
They were
And so
spectacular.
that combination of, yes, we have such great technical expertise, yes, we have so much experience to share, but at the end of the day, it's those relationships that we are always working on and strengthening through the association and the global family, which, as all of you have said, it's very difficult to find out there when you're working as a lone firm. So, yep, we're staying around. Well, thank you so much, guys, for your time. And as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, we'll find other opportunities to share insights and experiences as well, because this sort of goodness you should not keep under wraps. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Angela.
Thanks, Angela.
Angela, bye.